When Lin Jing opened his eyes quietly, he felt his whole body was sticky, as if he was soaked in a large bucket of fruit. He tried to move, but found that he had no hands or even his bones. His whole body was soft and like a group of moving glue. He looked down. Well, he couldn't even lower his head because he didn't have a neck because he had no neck. What's going on? Lin Jing was confused, and the memory in her brain was still working overtime until midnight, and then stepped on the empty hand and rolled down the company stairs. Then there was a darkness, and when I was interested, it turned into this ghost now. He insisted on concentrating and felt that he seemed to be able to see the surrounding situation, not with his eyes, but with some strange perception. Around it is a moist forest, with thick moss on the ground, and the air is filled with the smell of soil and rotten leaves. There are several large trees in the sky, and the skins are covered with strange-shaped bacteria, emitting faint green light. Occasionally, a few fist-sized horns crawled over him and made a slight rustling sound. Wait, am I traveling through time? This thought suddenly appeared in Lin Jing's brain. After all, he has not read much online articles and is very familiar with this routine. However, he never expected that he would become a sticky group. He tried to move and found that he could flow slowly like water. Although the speed was as slow as a turtle, he could at least move. He moved to a small beach to the water, and with the reflection of the water surface, he finally saw his own appearance clearly. A group of blue translucent rubber objects, probably as big as a ball, and a few small bubbles appeared on the surface from time to time. How to see, it looks like a low-end version of slime. No. I'm slime? Lin Jing's heart rushed over with a horse. He had played several games at least and knew that slime's thing was basically the experience package of the novice village, and it could be flattened by any passerby. Just as he was complaining about his destruction, a rustling sound suddenly came from the side. Lin Jing shook instinctively, twisted his body and saw a big black thorn crawling towards him. The squid was half a meter long, with green mucus dripping from his mouth, and a slim light in his eyes, which obviously made him a Chinese dish. Come on the trough, I'll give it to someone when I start the game. Lin Jing panicked, but soon realized that he couldn't escape at all, so he could only deal with it with his head. He tried to concentrate and felt a strange energy flowing in his body, like instinct. He condensed this energy into the front end of the body and then suddenly hit the zombie. With a bang, the slut was knocked over and over, but Lin Jing himself was not much better. He felt like he had hit a wall and his whole body was almost disintegrated. The snail shook his brain, and obviously he was not injured. He made a sharp scream and rushed over again. It's over, it's really going to be slouched. Lin Jing was looking in his heart. Seeing that the horny sharp mouth was about to bite, he suddenly felt a strong desire not to escape, but eat the other party. This movement was inexplicable, but Lin Jing didn't have time to think too much. Almost instinctively, he opened his body, like a big pocket, and directly wrapped the whole cat in it. The worm pierced in it for a few seconds, but it was soon wrapped in mucus in Lin Jing's body, and then dissolved slightly. What's the thing? Can I eat? Lin Jing was stunned for a moment, and then he felt a warm current pouring out of his body, as if he had taken some big pot pills, and his whole body was full of strength. He could clearly feel that his body had grown a little bigger, and the color had changed from a light blue to a slightly darker blue. What surprised him even more was that there was suddenly some fragmentary information in his brain. The snail's nature, attacking method, and even the environment in which it lived seemed to have been engraved in his memory. Is this devouring evolution? Lin Jing was excited and finally realized that he might not be an ordinary slime. He tried to recall what he had just felt and found that as long as he focused, he could adjust the energy in his body and even simulate the spike shape of the snail. Although it was just a cylindrical shape, it could at least be used as a small weapon. It seems that God still gave me some benefits. Lin Jing opened his heart. Although slime was quite despised, with the ability to swallow and evolve, he might be able to make some fortune. He decided to spend a long time in this forest and swallow more little animals to enhance himself. He could not always be an empirical bag. In the next few days, Lin Jing began his hunting career. It is said to be a hunting key, but in fact it is to go find something weaker than yourself, such as small animals and grass to swallow. Every time he swallowed, he could feel that he had become stronger, and his body gradually changed from the size of a ball to the size of a face basin. The color became darker and darker, and he could even simulate some simple shapes, such as spikes or small claws. However, this forest is not a safe place to be brought. Lin Jing quickly discovered that the creatures here were more deadly than the other, and even slightly larger monsters could easily crush him. Once, he was almost pecked to death by a monster bird with 3 brain bags. If he hadn't diamonded into a pile of mud in time, he would have become a bird. No, if this continues, it will be over. Lin Jing hid at the root of a big tree, calculating in her heart. Although he can swallow and evolve, the things he can swallow are actually too weak and grow as slowly as a bull. He has to find stronger goals, or at least find a safe place, so as not to be considered a little bit at any time. At this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps suddenly came from a distance, accompanied by the sound of branches being trampled. Lin Jing instinctively shrank his body, hid in the shadows at the roots of the tree, and then carefully looked over. I saw a girl in a green robe running through the forest. She had long silver-white hair and pointed ears, like a spirit, and was holding a wooden stick. Her face was white, and blood was hanging on the corners of her mouth, and she was obviously injured. Not far behind the girl, several wolf-shaped monsters with long fangs were chasing each other and roaring lowly. "Bok, what kind of big scene is this?" Lin Jing was shocked. Although he wanted to help, with his small body now, he probably didn't have any tooth plugging. He could only shrink in the corner and observe quietly. The girl stumbled and it seemed that she had reached the limit. She gritted her teeth, raised her wooden stick and recited a few spells in a low voice. Then several vines broke out from the ground and tried to capture the demon wolf behind her. But the demon wolves just clawed their vines to pieces, without reducing speed at all. "No. I can't die here," the girl murmured in a low voice, her eyes filled with hope. She staggered, and was knocked down by a stone under her feet, and she fell into the grassland that was far away from the forest. When the demon wolf saw the scene, it let out a thrilling howl and suddenly came up. Lin Jing felt nervous. Although he knew that he should not be careless, he couldn't help but move when he looked at the girl's helpless eyes. A big thought suddenly appeared in his brain: if he could save this girl, he might get some useful information from her, and at least he could figure out where this ghost place was. "Fight!" Lin Jing gritted his teeth, quickly regulating the energy in his body, putting himself into a group of inconspicuous mud, and then quietly moved to the girl's side. The demon wolves were preparing to bite the girl, but they didn't notice the existence of this group of Maiba. Lin Jing looked at the timing and suddenly burst out a sharp thorn from the mud shape, directly piercing into the demon wolf's back leg. The demon wolf suffered a pain, let out a cry, and turned toward Lin Jing. But Lin Jing had already prepared, quickly retracted the spikes and turned into an inconspicuous group of mud. While the demon wolf did not react, he quietly moved a few meters away. "What's the matter?" The girl was stunned for a moment. Obviously she didn't expect that something would help her. She looked down and found Lin Jing's strange mud group. There was a flash of doubt in her eyes, but she was soon replaced by surprise. Are you a monster? Or..." The girl didn't finish her speech and coughed up another mouthful of blood, but she still stood up with force, lifted up her wooden stick, and prepared to fight with the demon wolf to death to break the fish. Lin Jing saw this and felt helpless. He knew that he would delay this little trick for a long time and could not solve the problem at all. But he had no other choice, so he could only continue to disguise himself and put them into mud, and occasionally burst out spikes to snatch the demon wolf, trying to fight for the girl to get some time. "Hey, can you understand what I say? I am Ellie, from the Spirit Clan. If you can help me, I will definitely reply to you." The girl gasped and said to Lin Jing in a low voice, her eyes full of requests. Lin Jing's heart was moved. Although he couldn't say anything now, he still shook his body slightly, which was a response. Ellie saw the situation, bit her teeth tightly, and quickly took out a green crystal from it and stuffed it on Lin Jing's body. This is the core of nature, which can enhance your strength in a short time. Swallow it and help me hold these guys. Alice's voice brought a desperate decision, which obviously put all the final hope on Lin Jing. Lin Jing didn't think much about it and swallowed the crystal stone. In an instant, a powerful energy exploded in his body. He felt as if his body was injected with rocket fuel, and his body instantly doubled, and his color turned into a deep green color, which could even simulate thicker spikes and claws. Bok, this is a medicine. Lin Jing was ecstatic in her heart. She took advantage of the sudden power and rushed towards the nearest demon wolf. This time, he no longer beat the little boy, but directly pierced the demon wolf's abdomen with a spike, and then quickly swallowed the other party's flesh and blood. The demon wolf let out a silence howl, and after a few slaps, it no longer silences. When several other demon wolves saw this, they let out a low growl, as if they were a little jealous, but they did not retreat, but instead came over even more ruthlessly. Come on, who are you afraid? Lin Jing, with the blessing of the core of nature, was completely unwilling and fought with the remaining demon wolf. Although he was still full of injuries, he could recover a little of the blood and flesh of the demon wolf every time he swallowed up, and his strength was still growing slowly. Ellie looked at this scene with shock in her eyes. She has never seen slime achieve this, even devouring the flesh and blood of monsters to evolve. She bit her teeth tightly, and while Lin Jing dragged the demon wolf's empty space, she quickly chanted the spell, and a green light shot out from the wooden stick, directly hitting the brain of the last demon wolf. With a bang, the demon wolf fell to the ground and lost all breath. Lin Jing relaxed, and felt that the energy in his body quickly faded, and his body also reduced back to its original state, even a little smaller than before. It was obviously because he had just exploded and overdrawn too much power. Thank you. Ellie leaned weakly against the tree, looking at Lin Jing, with gratitude in her eyes. I have never seen slime like you. Who are you? Lin Jing smiled bitterly in his heart. He wanted to answer, but unfortunately he didn't even have any mouths now, so he could only shake his body and signal that he had no evil intentions. Ellie saw this, smiled reluctantly, and said, Whatever you are, I owe you a life. If you want, you can go with me. I know a safe place that will at least not have to hide. Lin Jing heard this and felt a little moved. He knew that he was so powerful that he was already in this forest. Following this spirit girl, he might be able to learn something useful, and at least he could figure out what was going on in this world. He shook slightly, as if he agreed. Ellie saw the scene, showed a heavy smile, then stood up and walked towards the deep forest. Lin Jing followed her tightly. Although her body was still soft, a huge amount of hope ignited in her heart. In this film, the only way to eat the weak is to eat the weak. But Lin Jing was absolutely unwilling to be slime, who had always been the bottom. One day, he will swallow everything and stand at the top of this large area, so that everyone can remember his name. Lin Jing followed Ellie to shuttle through the forest. Although his movement speed was as slow as an old lady passing by, fortunately, Ellie herself was injured and walked unhappily, and stopped to take a breath. The air in the forest became more and more tidier and denser. The sunlight was almost completely blocked by the branches and leaves. It could only reflect a few glimmers of light under the gap, reflecting the spots on the ground. The low roar of the beast was coming from time to time, which made Lin Jing's heart feel a little hairy, but he had no choice but to keep up with him. Hey, are you okay? Ellie turned her head and looked at Lin Jing, with a little concern in her voice. Although she asked Lin Jing, her face was as white as Zhang Baipao, and the blood on the corners of her mouth had not been completely wiped dry, which seemed to be very weak. Lin Jing couldn't speak, so he could only shake his body and signal that he could still hold it. To be honest, after just swallowing the flesh and blood of the demon wolf, although he overdrawn a lot of his strength, he still left a little energy in his body, which could keep him from falling apart. However, what he cares most about now is not himself, but where is the safe place that Ellie said. Ellie saw that he had no major problems, so she clicked a little and continued to move forward. She walked along and said in a low voice, the place we are going is the secret of the spirit clan, and there is still a distance from here. But don't worry, there is a boundary protection there, and ordinary monsters cannot enter. As long as we get there, we can rest well and help you figure out, well, your experience. Lin Jing was moved in his heart. Although he wanted to tell Alice that he was actually a time traveler, the current slime model cannot even sound, so he could only suppress this thought first. He was quite curious about what the spirit clan in Ellie's mouth looked like, and why she was chased by those demon wolves. After walking for about half a time, Ellie's pace became slower and slower, and finally stopped in front of a secret tree hole. She sat down against the tree, gasping heavily, took out a small bottle of green liquid from it, and took a sip, and then her face looked a little better. This is natural essence, which can restore some physical strength. She looked at Lin Jing, hesitated for a moment, poured out another drop, and dripped it on him. You try it too, it should be useful to you. Lin Jing was not in a good mood and directly sucked the drop of liquid into his body. Sure enough, a stream of refreshing energy flowed in his body, as if he had drunk Bingjian Kale, and his whole body became much more comfortable. He felt that his body had recovered a little more, and he could even simulate a small touch. Although it still looked quite funny, it was at least much stronger than the purest group of mucus before. Thank you. Lin Jing said silently in his heart. Although he couldn't make a sound, he still touched Ellie's hand with his touch, which was a sign of thanks. Ellie was stunned for a moment, then smiled. You can really understand what I say. It's strange that slime shouldn't have such a kind of wisdom. Where did you come from? Lin Jing smiled bitterly in his heart. He wanted to answer, but unfortunately the conditions were not allowed, so he could only pretend to be stupid. He shook his body and didn't understand anything. Ellie saw that he didn't talk and didn't ask anymore, but just muttered in a low voice, forget it, when it comes to the point, maybe the elders can see what's going on. After a break, the two continued to set off. As we penetrated into the forest, the land began to become rough and scattered. The ground was filled with tree roots with misty stems, and some magical plants radiating glimmers, emitting strange fragrances. Lin Jing couldn't help but see a few more times. He was so stubborn that he wanted to swallow a few tests to see if he could develop new abilities. But he also knew that now was not the time to take risks, so he could only endure it first. At this moment, a low roar suddenly came from the front, like a warning from some large monster. Ellie's face changed. She quickly pulled Lin Jing and hid behind a big tree, and said in a low voice, "It's Carl's subordinates. We have to walk around." Karsa? Lin Jing was stunned. Although he had not heard of this name, judging from Ally's tight-knitted language, this guy is definitely not a character to mess with. Ellie bit her lip and explained in a low voice, Calcais is the overlord of this monster forest, a dark wolf king. It governs all the monsters in the forest and is merciless to any existence that threatens its status. I was chased before because I stole a magic crystal in its nest. Speaking, she took out a piece of crystals radiating with blue light from her eyes, and a complexion was found in her eyes. This is very important for the spiritual clan's boundary repair, but I didn't expect that Carzace would send his subordinates to chase me. Lin Jing looked at the crystal, and a strong desire suddenly surged in his body, like an instinct. He especially wanted to swallow this and try it. But he also knew that now was not the time, so he could only suppress this impulse, trembled his body, and signaled Ellie to move away tightly. Ellie clicked the head, put away the crystal stone, and walked towards another path with Lin Jing in the direction of the roaring sound. This road is even more secretive, almost completely covered by dense shrubs, and as the two of them walked through it, they were often swept by spikes. Ellie was fine, and Lin Jing was worried with her long robe. Although he was slime, he still felt a strange and painful feeling when he was stabbed, which made him feel embarrassed. After finally passing through the bushes, a clearing area finally appeared in front of me. There is a huge ancient tree in the middle of the open space. The tree is as thick as a small hill. The seams are full of complex runes, emitting a faint green light. The air around the ancient trees seemed a little distorted, as if there was an invisible barrier protecting something. Here, this is the secret point of the spirit clan. Ellie relaxed her voice and said to Lin Jing, "Follow me and don't be bothered. The boundary here will attack the unrecognized creatures." Lin Jing felt nervous and followed her obediently. Ellie walked to the ancient tree, raised her wooden stick, chanted a few spells in a low voice, and then a rune on the tree's skin lit up, and the barrier in the air seemed to have been torn a hole, revealing a passage leading into the tree. "Come in." Ellie waved and walked in first. Lin Jing hesitated for a moment and moved in. As soon as he entered, Lin Jing was shocked by the scene in front of him. The inside of the ancient tree looks like another world. The space looks much larger than the outside, surrounded by glowing vines and floating magic particles, and a fresh fragrance of grass and trees is filled with the air. There is a small lake in the center, with clear waters and a few small fish swimming in it. "Ellie, you're back." An old elf showed a look of relief on her face when she saw Ellie, but soon raised her eyebrows again. "Are you injured? And, what is this?" The old spirit's eyes fell on Lin Jing, and there was a sense of vigilance in his eyes. Several other spirits also watched it, and the wooden sticks in several people's hands shone slightly, which seemed to be ready to move at any time. "Bold, this is my life savior." Ellie explained quickly, "It is a slime, but unlike other slimes, it has spirit and can also devour monsters and evolve. If it weren't for its help, I would have died under the demon wolf." "Swallowing and evolving?" The old spirit narrowed his eyes and looked at Lin Jing up and down, as if he wanted to see through him. How could a low-level monster like slime have such ability? Lin Jing was stared so hard that he was uncomfortable, but he had no idea, so he could only stay where he was, pretending that he was just a group of ordinary mucus. "Bold, it's not the time to pursue this." Ellie took out the blue crystal from the ground and sent it to the old spirit. "I got Carls's magic crystal, which can be used to repair the boundaries. But Carls's has discovered that its men are searching for me everywhere, and we must move closely." The old spirit picked up the crystal and pointed his face solemnly. "Okay, I will arrange for the repair of the boundary immediately. You go and rest first. As for slime, let it stay here for a while, but someone must watch it." Ellie relaxed her voice and said to Lin Jing, "Come with me first, and I'll find you a place to rest. Don't worry, it's very safe here and no one will harm you." Lin Jing shook his body, and agreed. He followed Ellie to a cottage on the lake, which was simply a straw bed and a few wooden shelves. Ellie let him stay in a corner of the room, then sat down and started handling the wound. "Seriously, I still don't understand what you are," Ellie said in a low voice, "but no matter what, thank you for saving me. When I recover, I will teach you some knowledge about this world, at least so that you won't be able to get into trouble." Lin Jing felt warm. Although he was slime now, it was still quite touching to have someone willing to help. He silently decided that when he became stronger, he would definitely report to Ellie. In the next few days, Lin Jing stayed at the spirit site. Although he couldn't run around, he was safe at least. He took advantage of this time to learn a lot of knowledge about the Phantom Greatland from Ellie. For example, magic and monsters coexist in this large world, the strong are the supreme, and the strong eating of the weak is the only law. Although the spirit clan has a magical talent, it is often bullied by other clans or monsters because it does not like to fight. And a monster overlord like Karzace is a singular existence. Kalsa is not an ordinary monster. When Ellie mentioned this name, she had a scare in her eyes. It has ruled the monster forest for hundreds of years, and its power is strong. I heard that it can even compete with the top-notch people of humanity. If slime like you is discovered by it, it will probably be gone. Lin Jing's heart sank. Although he has the ability to swallow and evolve, his current strength is probably not a big deal in front of Karsa's. He secretly made up his mind to take the time to become stronger, at least he could not be stomped off by others at any time. At this moment, a sudden alarm came from outside the spot, like a response from some kind of magic touch. Ellie's face changed and she suddenly stood up. No, the boundary was attacked. It's Karls's subordinate. She grabbed the wooden stick and turned to Lin Jing. "Stay here and don't move, I'll go and help." After saying that, she rushed out. Lin Jing felt nervous. Although he knew that he couldn't help, sitting like this was not his style. He hesitated for a moment, and quietly moved to the door of the cottage and looked outward. I only saw that the boundary outside the point was shaking violently, and something was breaking out of cracks on the green light curtain. Several dozen demon wolves were surrounded outside the boundary, and they were carrying a black wolf with an extremely huge body, with heavy dark breath scattered on their bodies. It was obviously Carl's subordinates. "Drunk spirit, hand over the magic crystal." The black wolf let out a low growl, and the sound was filled with threat. "Otherwise, today will make your points turn into ruins." The spirits pick up their weapons and prepare for battle. Ellie stood in front, the wooden stick in her hand was emitting green light, and she had obviously made great efforts to prepare. Lin Jing looked at this scene and felt a tingle in her heart. He knew that in the past, he was giving away too much, but if he did nothing, Ellie and these spirits would probably have a lot of luck. A sudden big thought popped up in his brain: if he could swallow something, he might be able to improve his strength in a short time and help him get busy. He quickly looked around and his eyes fell on several magical plants that shone on the lake. These plants are radiating with a heavy magical atmosphere. Although they don't know the specific effect, they just told him that there will definitely be a benefit if they swallow this. Fight! Lin Jing gritted his teeth and took advantage of the battle outside the boundary that everyone was focusing on, and quietly moved to the lake, quickly swallowing a magical plant into his body. In an instant, a hot energy exploded in his body, as if swallowing a group of flames, making his whole body almost fall apart. But at the same time, he also felt his power grow at a speed of growth, his body expanding more than twice, and he could even simulate more thicker touches and spikes, and the color changed from a dark blue to a dark color with a purple light. "Bored, this thing is so powerful." Lin Jing was ecstatic. Although this force was a little unstable, it at least gave him a war of capital. He quickly moved to the boundary and was ready to find a chance to steal the demon wolves. At this time, the boundary was finally knocked open, and several demon wolves roared and rushed in. Ellie and other spirits immediately fought, magic and minions intertwined, and the scene instantly became chaotic. Lin Jing saw the timing and suddenly burst out a sharp thorn, which directly penetrated the demon wolf's back leg. The demon wolf was in pain and turned toward him, but Lin Jing had already prepared to quickly retract the spike, then used his touching hand to snails, dragged the other person to the ground, and began to swallow its flesh and blood. "It's this slime who should die again." The black wolf with the head noticed Lin Jing and roared, "Kill it." Lord Kars said that any threat must be removed. Several demon wolves heard the order and immediately rushed towards Lin Jing. Lin Jing felt nervous. Although he had just swallowed magical plants and increased his power, it was still a bit difficult to face such many demon wolves. He could only back and try to delay time. "Lin Jing, retreat." Ellie's voice suddenly rose. She pulled the demon wolf back with her staff, then quickly rushed to Lin Jing's body, lifted the wooden staff and emitted a green light, and prompted the enemy around her to retreat. "Why did you run out?" Alice glared at him, obviously a little angry, but her eyes were more worried. Lin Jing had no way to explain, so he could only shake his body and signal that he was not here to die. He quickly regulating the energy in his body and was ready to fight with Alice. The battle became more and more intense. Although the spirits were blessed by magic, the number of demon wolves was too large and gradually fell into decline. Lin Jing and Ellie were back to back, barely supporting each other, but it was getting more and more difficult. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly came from a distance, as if some kind of terrifying existence was approaching. All the demon wolves heard this sound and stopped acting, showing a look of awe. "It's Lord Carl's," the black wolf with his head growled, "it's coming." Lin Jing's heart sank. Although he had not seen Car's ace yet, just hearing this sound, he knew that the other party was definitely not a role he could deal with. He looked at Ellie and found that her face was white and bloodless, and obviously realized the seriousness of the matter. In the deep forest, a pair of red eyes lit up, and with heavy footsteps, a huge dark wolf walked out of the shadow. Its body shape is several times larger than that of an ordinary demon wolf, and its body is filled with dark air, as if it can swallow all light. Elf, hand over the crystal. Carls's voice was low and cold, with unquestionable pressure. Otherwise, I will crush your own points, and that dead slime. Lin Jing felt a strong sense of pressure coming towards him, as if he was being pressed by a mountain, and it was difficult to move and swing. He knew that this battle might not be over so easily. Lin Jing felt the red eyes of Carls's eyes as if a basin of ice water was sucked from his head to his feet, and his whole body couldn't help but tremble slightly. The pressure was so strong that he instinctively wanted to collapse into a group, pretending that he was just an inconspicuous stone. But he knew very well that he could not hide now, and Carthus had clearly locked his existence. Ellie stood beside him, her fingers tightly gripped tightly, her face as if she was about to pass, but there was an unyielding light in her eyes. She said to Lin Jing in a low voice, "Don't act, I will hold it as much as possible. You find a chance to run, don't worry about me." When Lin Jing heard this, his heart stormed. Although he is slime, he is a little human, so how could he leave Ellie and run away? Besides, it would be strange if he could run away with Car's ace. He shook his body, signaled Ellie not to leave, and then quickly adjusted the remaining energy in his body, tried to simulate a more sharp spike, and prepared to give this giant wolf a ruthless moment. Carls's stepped forward and the ground was shaking slightly. It lowered its head and looked down at everyone in the spirit point, with the rays of savage light flashing in the red eyes. "I'll say it again, hand over the crystal, and that slime. I can let you live for a few more days." Its voice was as low as thunderbolt, and every word seemed to hit the chest of everyone. The old spirit stood up tall and held the blue crystal in his hand, and his face was full of determination. "Karsa, this crystal is the hope of our spirit clan, and we will never hand it over to you. If you want to fight, we will stay with you." Overestimate one's ability. Carls's snorted coldly, and the black air on his body swelled like countless black snakes spiraling around it, and then suddenly rushed towards the broken gap in the boundary. The only remaining green light curtain was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of it, and was instantly torn to pieces. Several spirits tried to stop using magic, but their vines and light arrows were swallowed by black gas and dried up. "Scatter! Don't fight hard!" Ellie shouted, quickly pulled Lin Jing back, and at the same time lifted the wooden stick and emitted a green light, forming a thin barrier in front of her. But this barrier is not worth mentioning in front of Carl's. It just clawed the barrier to smash, and the huge impact force directly shocked Ellie and Lin Jing out. Lin Jing turned a few followers in the air and fell heavily to the ground, feeling that the whole body was about to fall apart. He finally calmed down and turned his head and saw that Ellie had fallen far away, and blood came out of the corner of his mouth, which was obviously not light. He felt anxious and moved quickly, touched her with a small touching hand, indicating whether she was fine. Ellie opened her eyes nervously and smiled bitterly. "I can do it yet. Go quickly. Don't worry about me." "That's a big deal." Lin Jingxin cried out. Although he couldn't say it, his attitude was very certain. He quickly looked around and found that the spirits had been forced back by Carls's and his men, and the lake in the center was full of chaotic battle marks. He knew that if he didn't do anything now, everyone would probably have to be happy. His visual line suddenly landed on several magic plants on the lake. He just swallowed one and his strength increased a lot. Although his illness was quite serious, at least it was proven that these things were useful to him. He had a crazy idea in his brain: if he swallowed a few more, he might be able to fight and give Karzace a surprise. "Fight!" Lin Jing gritted his teeth and took advantage of Karsai's focus on attacking other spirits, quickly moved to the lake, opened his body, and swallowed the remaining 3 magic plants in one breath. In an instant, a more violent energy exploded in his body, as if he had swallowed 3 small suns, making him almost exploded directly. But at the same time, his body swelled wildly, and his color changed from dark purple to dark purple, almost black, and countless sharp bone spurs appeared on the surface, like a moving spike. "Bored, this feeling is a little cool." Lin Jing was ecstatic. Although this force made him feel like he would lose control at any time, he couldn't see that much. He quickly tuned his energy, simulated himself into a group of huge thorns, and then rushed towards Karzace. Looking for death. Karzace noticed the static hair, and the red eyes narrowed slightly, as if they were a little surprised, but more of them were disdainful. It raised its claw at will and was ready to slap Lin Jing into a beach of mud. But Lin Jing was not giving away this time. With the blessing of magical plants, he forced himself to catch Karzace's blow. Although his body was photographed in shape, the bone spurs also stabbed Karzace's claws hard, bringing out a string of black blood flowers. Ayo! Karzace let out a low growl, obviously not expecting a small slime to hurt it. It was furious, and its blackness stoned violently, preparing to give Lin Jing a fatal blow. Lin Jing, hide! Ellie looked at this scene, her voice crying, but she couldn't stand up, so she could only watch with her eyes silence. Lin Jing knew very well that he was too stubborn when he hit the ball. He couldn't even catch Karzace in a single move. Carrying tricks. Karzace snorted coldly, as if he had expected this point for a long time. He shook his tail suddenly, and the huge force directly drove Lin Jing out and smashed it into the lake. Lin Jing felt like she was hit by a car, and her entire body was half scattered, and she was reluctant to reunite. He soaked in the lake and felt that the energy in his body was rapidly losing, and the blessing effect of the magical plants began to weaken. He was desperate in his heart. This guy is too strong, it's not of the same level at all. But at this moment, he suddenly felt something at the bottom of the lake attracting him, like some familiar energy wave. He reluctantly concentrated and felt a small piece of fragments radiating faint light deep at the bottom of the lake. Although it looked inconspicuous, the energy made him feel instinctively long. What's this? Lin Jing's heart was moved. Although he didn't know what this fragment was, he just told him that this thing would be of great use to him. He quickly sank to the bottom of the lake, opened his body, and swallowed the fragments. In an instant, an ancient and vast memory swept into his brain, as if a door leading to the far-reaching era was opened. He sees a chaotic world, with countless huge monsters roaring, one of which was pitch-black slime standing in the center of the chaos, with the power of destroying the sky and the earth ringing all around him, and the thunder in the sky and the flames on the earth were to set the way for it. In Slime's eyes, there was a light like him. Is this the memory of the ancient slime? Lin Jing was shocked, and then more information rushed into the core of evolution, a thing that could allow any creature to break through the limits and become a true god. The ancient slime was infinitely close to the core of evolution, but it eventually failed, leaving behind this small piece of memory, waiting for future generations to inherit its will. The core of evolution. If I can find it, I can change everything. A group of flames ignited in Lin Jing's heart. Although he was as weak as a small snail, the fragments gave him a clear goal and made the power in his body boil again. Although the energy of the fragment was weak, it repaired his body that was overdrawn by the magical plant, and even made his condition more stable, and there was a lot of breath from the ancient slime. The battle on the lake continued. Karzace had completely suppressed the spirits, and Alice and the others had almost no strength to help. Lin Jing knew that he could not delay any more, what he had to do. When he floated up from the bottom of the lake, the energy in his body was not strong, but it was much better than that. He quickly adjusted his strength, simulated a thick touch, then burst out from the lake, directly snatching one of Karzace's back legs, and tried to drag it into the water in a picture. It's you again. Karzace roared, shook his legs suddenly, and tried to throw Lin Jing away. But this time, Lin Jing stopped and even scattered part of his body, turning into mucus and sticking firmly to Karzace, slowing down its movements. Alice, act! Lin Jing shouted in his heart. Although he couldn't say it, he hoped that Alice could understand what he meant. Alice saw this scene, her eyes lit up, and she quickly lifted the wooden stick, and as soon as the last force shot emitted a dazzling green light, directly hitting Karzace's chest. Although the green light was not fatal, it also made Karzace suffer, and he let out a roar, and his movements slightly scattered. Taking advantage of this opportunity, other spirits also fought against attacks. Although the single magic was not strong, getting together still made Karzace distracted from responding. Lin Jing saw the situation and quickly dissipated the mucus, regained the shape, and then diamonded back to the lake to avoid Carsize's counterattack. "Slime, I will crush you by myself." Carsize roared, his body storming, and was ready to kill everyone. But at this moment, a low horn sound suddenly came from a distance, like a signal of some kind of call. When Carsize heard this, the red eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was a little jealous. It growled and turned to its head to say to its subordinates, "Retreat. I will come back to calculate this account." After speaking, it glared at Lin Jing and Ellie fiercely, and quickly retreated back to the depths of the forest with the demon wolf pack. Lin Jing floated out of the lake, and felt like her whole body was squeezed dry, and she was free to move. He looked Carsize's far away back and felt relieved, but he also knew that this guy would never let it go. Ellie walked to the lake, stumbled, her face full of fatigue, but she still smiled. "You guy, can really lose your fortune. I almost thought we all had to." Lin Jing shook his body and signaled that he had no major problems. He was just counting the memory fragments in his heart, and the evolutionary core made him see the direction of the future. He knew that Carsize was just the first land rover, and there were more powerful existences waiting for him on the Phantom Land. But no matter what, he has to be strong, so strong that he can protect the people around him and so strong that he can change Slime's fate. The old spirit walked over and his face was still solemn, but there was a little relief in his eyes. "Alice, and Slime, you did a good job. But Carsize is not good at ease, we must be prepared." Ellie clicked the head and turned to Lin Jing. "You heard it, and it will be even more dangerous next time. If you want to stay, we will do our best to help you. But if you want to leave, I won't hold it." Lin Jing was moved in his heart. Although it might be safer to stay, he knew that his path was not here. The evolutionary core was like a thorn, piercing him into his heart, making him unable to settle down. He shook his body, signaled that he wanted to leave, and then touched Ellie's hand lightly with a small touching hand, which was considered a saying. Ellie was stunned for a moment, then she showed a somewhat disappointed smile. "Okay, I understand. You guys are always so uneasy. But no matter where you go, remember not to die. I'm still waiting for you to come back and report your life-saving grace." Lin Jing felt warm. Although he was slime now, he remembered Ellie's love. He silently swore that one day he would come back with a stronger attitude to protect those who had helped him. A few days later, Lin Jing left the spirit point and embarked on a journey to find the core of evolution. The air in the forest was still damp and dangerous, and the monster's roar was constantly coming from afar, but he didn't retreat a little in his heart. He knew that this road would be long and difficult, but as long as it could swallow everything and evolve everything, one day, he would stand at the top of this vast land, so that everyone could remember his name, King of Slime, Lin Jing. The sunlight shone through the gaps of the leaves and reflected on his blue-purple body, as if it was covered with a glimmer of light on him. He moved slowly and moved towards an unknown direction. The forest behind him was gradually not in the smoke, and there were still countless challenges waiting for him on the road ahead.